This is Muntaha and this is episode 2. I have read the book Fatal Flaws: How a Misfolded Protein Baffled Scientists and Changed the Way We Look at the Brain, written by J. Ingram. Another topic in this book is Kuru. It was a disease found in New Guinea. New Guinea is an island on top of Australia. It stretches at 786,000 square kilometers. After the war, the Australian government took control of the eastern half of the island, which is now called Papua New Guinea. New Guinea is home to nearly 1,000 different languages with a population of only 7 million. It's an exotic biology of an island. It's among the most spectacular. Researchers have encountered never-before-seen species of amphibians, mammals, birds, and invertebrates. In around the 21st century, New Guinea reported the first mating of the ritual of the burlap six-wired bird of paradise, a bird that was thought to be extinct and remains only in museums. Around the early 1950s, a report was sent of a strange fatal disease hitting the 4 people who lived in the jungle, Kuru. It was seen never before. The symptoms of this disease were unsteady gait, jerking, shaking, and loss in coordination, and finally the inability to walk and stand up. No one survived Kuru. It was as deadly as it gets. Scientist Carlton Gatasek was attracted to the mystery attached to this disease. Carlton Gatasek was an American physician and medical researcher who was a co-recipient of the Nobel Prize for his work on Kuru. He took many tests of blood, urine, and DNA and sent them to Australia and the USA for further testing. He did autopsies from the victims of Kuru to find an explanation for the disease. Carlton was an amazing scientist, but not many people liked him. Sir Macfarlane Burnet was an Australian Nobel Prize winner and wasn't fond of the fact that an American was in charge of a disease in Australian administered territory. Carlton didn't really care for what other scientists thought of him, as long as he thought that he was doing something right and helping those in need. He gained the trust of the 4 people so he can get his hands on the brain tissue to do further research. The 4 people were very protective of their brains because in their funeral ritual they ate the brains of the dead. They thought it will help them reach a high spiritual level and keep their dead loved ones forever living with them. Or, when 2 tribes fought, the tribe that wins will be able to eat their prisoners, the opposite tribe's warriors, in a feast of victory. That is quite disturbing, but luckily that was in the past. Mostly women and children were most popular in the Kuru disease because men were mostly out eating and away from their home and were forbidden from eating the brain of the woman, and they thought it would make them crazy. Carlton found out that Kuru ran in families. It was genetic and was only affecting the 4 people. He stayed with them and never caught the disease. Kuru was the strangest. Alzheimer's is another disease talked about in my book. Alzheimer's is a disease that mostly affects the elderly about 65 years and older. 6 million North Americans suffer from Alzheimer's. Scientists are estimating for it to reach an outstanding 18 million in the year 2020. Alzheimer's is a disease that attacks the brain. Dark spots form in the brain, either in between cells or inside of them. The in-between dark spots are plaques of misfolded proteins, which is quite similar to a Kuru-infected brain. The symptoms of this horrendous disease is difficulty finding the right word, forgetting where you put stuff, dementia, and changes in mood, and a failing sense of direction. Alzheimer's is mostly compared to Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, which symptoms are also dementia, loss of memory, and also hit elderly people. The difference is only 300 new cases of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease are found annually, and Alzheimer's has 360,000 new cases annually. Now I know what you're thinking. What is the real difference between them? Well, here's my explanation for you. Creutzfeldt-Jakob is a disease that is aggressive, infectious, and way more deadly than Alzheimer's. It's a prion disease, and once diagnosed with the disease, it's rare that you will live more than a year. In Alzheimer's, a person typically lives up to 4 to 8 years, but in milder cases, they can live up to 20 years. What finally kills off a victim of Alzheimer's is the complications and decline in the brain and spread of misfolded proteins. Thank you for tuning into episode 2 of my podcast on the book Fatal Flaws.